We're live.
Hi, welcome everyone to our monthly swim poetry reading. We are thrilled and very happy to have two wonderful poets with us tonight, Ellene and Soledad Caballero. Before I introduce them, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Caballero, and I'm part of the amazing swim team, along with Catherine Esposito Prescott and Jem Karetnik, our wonderful co-founders of swim. And thanks as well to Betsy, for hosting us as always so graciously and so beautifully. Before I get started, because it is a season where we're buying gifts, I wanted to let you know that we're having a fundraiser at Swim, and one of our most beautiful, coveted offerings is this beautiful broadside by our poet, Soledad Caballero. She was the winner of our Poetry in Bloom contest. I'm sorry, say that again?
Swim for the fun of it?
Swim for the fun of it, yes. We've had so many of them, and we're so inundated with just wonderful poets and winners that I get confused. So, please, if you'd like one, it's a limited edition collection, it's beautifully done. Go to swim.org and you can order it. Also, for the imbibers out there, we have our Swimish 75. It is a drink that was created, a cocktail that was created just for swim, for $60. Plus shipping. If you are a local, you will also find on swim.org the code. Please check it out. It's a wonderful gift. And now, with no further ado, and introduce the reason why we are here. We are here to promote women and their wonderful work, their creativity, and their beautiful words. We are very thrilled and blessed to have Ellene Glenmore, an American writer living in Zurich. Her book, How Blood Works, won the 2020 Stan and Tom Wick Poetry Prize and was published by Kent State University Press earlier this fall. Ellene earned her MFA in creative writing from FIU, where she was a John S. and James L. Knight Foundation Fellow in Poetry. Her poetry, lyric, nonfiction, and critical work has appeared in Hayden's Ferry Review, West Branch, Best New Poets, Poetry Northwest, Brevity, Ninth Letter, and elsewhere. Find her online at Ellene Glenmore. And Soledad Caballero is a professor of English and co-chair of the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies program at Allegheny College. Her scholarship focuses on British Romanticism, travel writing, WGSS, and interdisciplinarity. She is a Macondo Fellow, a Canto Mundo Fellow, has been nominated for 3 Pushcart Prizes, has been a finalist for the Missouri Review's Jeffrey E. Smith Poetry Prize, a finalist for the Lucille Medwick Memorial Award, was the winner of the 2019 Joy Harjo Poetry Contest, sponsored by Cutthroat, a journal of arts, and winner of Swims Every Day, Swim for the Fun of It contest. Her poems have appeared in the Missouri Review, the Iron Horse Literary Review, and Crab Orchard Review, and other venues. Her first collection, I Was a Belle, won the 2019 Benjamin Saltman Poetry Prize and will be published by Red Hen Press in 2021. She's an avid TV watcher, I love that you admit that, and cheese eater, and is a terrible birder. She splits her time between Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Medville, Pennsylvania. Now, without any further ado, I would like to call to the stage Ellene Glenmore.
There we go.
Okay, cool.
Oh, okay, I hear something. Thank you so much for having me. This is truly an honor. It's a dream come true to be back in Miami, reading from my first book. So thank you so much to Swim for hosting me. As many of us have probably heard today, the great Bell Hooks died, which is just an unspeakable loss. Reading her work was transformative for me, as I'm sure it's been for many of you here. When I I come to readings as an audience member, and I especially felt this way as a student. I find myself not just wanting to appreciate art, but also in some ways looking for models of how to be as a writer. And especially as a woman, in some ways I've seen it as a kind of permission seeking, which is one of many reasons why the work that you do at Swim is so important and so vital. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to read some of Bell Hook's words before I read my work. This is what she says about women in writing, and this is from Remembered Raptures, The Writer at Work. No Black woman writer in this culture can write too much. Indeed, no woman writer can write too much. Considering the centuries of silence, the genres of writing that have been virtually the sole terrain of men, more contributions by women writers should be both encouraged and welcomed. As a professor, I sit in classrooms year after year talking with young women who are uncertain about their voices, who are still grappling with whether they can become authors. Many of these young women are afraid to speak, let alone write. When I witness their fear, their silences, I know no woman has written enough. I hope we can bear that in mind as we carry Bell Hooks' legacy forward. So I would like to start with a few little ekphrastic poems. I love ekphrastic writing, and there are quite a few of them here in this book, but I'm going to start with three very little ones. This is Mirror with Handle in the form of a female figure, Etruscan 3rd century BC. Here, a woman is made to be held and behold, both object and subject. Over and over, she lifts her hand to her lips, as though she could draw words from her mouth if only metal might yield. Close to her side, a vial of scented oil. Once, she may have said more than the globe above her head. Now, we are all simply watching. A traditional sculpture after Eleanor Anton. I'm observing the blue line gather itself into constellation, imagine itself red, pink, green, white. It seems to be reaching toward me, while just a few rooms away a woman carves her body and extracts from the medium something cruel, not a layering on. I'm telling you these things because I too am hoping to find pain, a beast, a house, already designed, waiting for the carver. I am the carver, to nod in admission, to articulate the form without a gathering, a building up, an addiction. Hand mirror in bronze, Etruscan 470 BC. In the absence of language, this fragment remains. Back toward me, Eos carved around the body of Memnon. Her grief is its own reflection, a memory of syntax, articulated briefly in the luminous, cool museum light. So I wrote or began writing all three of those one afternoon while sitting in the Art Institute of Chicago. I'm literally sitting in front of each one of those pieces. And I love writing in art museums, not just because they afford the opportunity to do some ekphrastic work, but because I think there's something really interesting and singular about the physical space of art museums and art galleries, and the way that we inhabit those spaces kind of invites us to think differently and articulate our thoughts differently, which is something that I was really interested in while I was working on this book. So I'm going to read three poems that were written in or about or having just left three different art museums in three different cities, and I will start, of course, with in Chicago. Outside the museum, thin branches harbor painfully red berries, and after hours on foot in the city, my small toe is twinging again, phantom of a fracture I can hardly remember, vestige of my walking madness in a still apartment during the sharpest spring I ever swallowed. In winter, thirst is different, empty, a withering smallness. In a cafe, a man smolders, gestures his malcontent across the wide table we share, tells me he's not one to play with. Traffic on Michigan Avenue seeps by in fits and starts, like frore water channeling down a window. Somehow, the sun has abandoned the frozen sky on the other side of the city, while I have dwelt on trivium that has swelled to the size of a skyline. In a few moments, I will meet an old friend on the northwest corner of Adams and Michigan, and I will disappear into her car. And while there is no mercy in the last notes of this blue hour, there is drinking in a stark neighborhood in the loop, and a crack about my mental faculties. Clement Premier Can doesn't make me remember or forget. I'm not talking about the man in the cafe, who is also not thinking about me, will also never answer my baiting emails that are about as veiled as the winter sun. Now, I've had to sip the caustic tang of bromide. I wish I could forget you, I want to say. Which is to say, I looked for you without reason when I went to put my hair up in the bathroom, sat alone at the table, walked in the night for ice cream I could not finish in the cold, which seems apropos of this particular emptiness. We're going to Italy now.
Yes.
Leaving the Galleria dell'Accademia. This is not at all about Michelangelo's David. The unformed figures in the gallery strain against the medium of their design. I think of them while sweaty shop windows glance by, the shapes inside as strange as the echoes of the forms of people, or this bus, or the sky gathered in glass. It is the shapelessness of these moments that inhabits me, makes me want. When I circle my own thoughts, I find no sling at the ready. My eyes do not roll in warning toward anybody's hegemonic Rome. I think he must have loved them, beautiful, half-abandoned expressions, struggling to articulate their bodies through every level of space, grasping their faces as if stone might truly brook their elemental rage. I think he must have loved them too much to let them rest. Thank you for your supportive nodding. I appreciate it. And this is in Paris. I wanted to tell you that in the gallery looping the obscene pyramidal wound of the Louvre, there is a cafe where once I took refuge from either the sun or the rain, both extremes a kind of musculature, an oppression when the season is not right, and where my mother and I fed sparrows the fine crumbed bread from our table. They seemed to know us, our discomfort, how the silence that followed each start displaced the easy morning like a drop of water in oil. They were unblinking, heads cocked and waiting for a tail. I read once that birds tilt their heads to orient themselves within the architecture of sound. Perhaps this has been my problem all along, no ready answer to the question of impetus, of plot. All morning we had wandered unpredictable streets, and in the Tuileries I collapsed against a painted carousel horse and finally smiled. I wanted to tell you that I ached, just ached for it to be about this, the picture my mother later taped to the fridge of me there, my circular laughter and amaranth dress, or the late sky over the river, or the light shattering itself around the watery spire of Notre Dame. Paris will always be about my mother and me, though she will rewrite this story over and over. Your art is your art, she will say. It is whatever you need it to be. I wanted to tell you, but I didn't understand then what stories hold or what they foreclose. The tale is hunger at the Louvre, or street lamps casting erratic shadows, or my mother crying that I don't know how to love. Above the table in the gallery cafe, a flag sighs in fitful declination. It shakes off story after story. The story is never enough. I'm aware that I write often and urgently about my mother. So just to balance things out. I may have left it in my bag. Hold on. I had a father poem that I was gonna do. I think I left it in my bag. To balance things out, we'll do a father poem. This is in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. At noon in Lawrence County, the earth opens, red clay torn through, and in his casket, my grandfather is as pale as wake robin. I ask my father where I should sit, lean down to kiss my grandmother who does not know who I am. And now her hips are bothered, her hands are saying she'd rather be anywhere but here. We are all looking for escape, the door, the hall, but now my father speaks, his voice a sigh, and he says, my dad, and in this space even the walls are wired. The bees, the honey, singing in a field. We bare our wrists, we rock open our hands, voices raised and falling in our laps, for we don't care to stay here long, my lord, the cleft in the rock, this clay beneath the floor. The clock in the hall rises over the shag, the mug, the mud, the beaten linoleum. Did you know your granddaddy composed songs? Did you know he fixed that clock together in the wood shop, soft sun illuminating grit and motes, the concrete floor thrumming beneath his feet, the air too sweet to breathe? My dad actually brought that clock up to my house a few weeks ago, but we didn't have room for it. I did, however, take a roll-top desk that my grandfather made for me when I was 3 years old, so that will accompany us on our adventures. I'll do one more from the book. Let's see. Here it is. Yes. So staying on the family theme, this poem is called Trying to Conceive in Burgundy in Summer. In Beaune, I learned that chalk in the terroir makes the wine creamy, while a man who has walked the vineyards all day, feeling the ground, rubs thick mold fur from a crisp aventurine bottle. I have to sort myself out in this thirsty smattering of summer rain. Everywhere the earthworms are making excruciating time across the pavement, beech trees shrugging off an anxious light. The gutters make monsters out of such small water. Late at night and pied-eyed on a middling Côte Nuit, I work myself over in frustration, stewing like stem and tannin in our lack of liquidity, fear of wasted time, that sinking feeling of not having fun the right way. I understand that I'm talking to myself the way my mother talks to me. To muddy the theme, my parents traveled these same molten roads in their youth, and now in the vicissitudes of age and separation, each has claimed that memory as entitlement. To muddy the theme, my friend has just had a miscarriage, which the nurses have termed a chemical pregnancy, as if her hoarse voice over the phone, the terror between her words, were simply a technicality. I see that I am no deep pool. I understand that the heavy clouds over crystalline gold grass are trying to tell me something vital, that I am on the banks of my own self, unsure of where to step, or if I am meant to ford at all, to cross in some distant and holy sense. I am too married to ground I've already left, too afraid of my own pleasure. These delicious anthologies, the vintner in the cellar, his sweet lollygagging dog and grandmother in slippers, the frighteningly blue sky composing itself in an instant, and again, and again. That was the last poem I wrote and put into the book. I was 6 months pregnant when I wrote it, and it was the last poem that I wrote for about 2 years. So I will let you connect the dots there. But I guess, oops. Let's see. My ear is not properly shaped for these things. Okay, we're back. I'm going to read now the first poem that I wrote 2 years later, which is called Soothing My Daughter at Nap Time While Recovering from a Cold. And after all this coughing madness, I find myself not such a big thing anymore, whittled down as I am by shock after shock, the sore throat. I think of the ocean's bitterness as it contemplates the wake of each boat, the noisiness of each desire. Who thought the ocean could put its depths to such uses? Yesterday, I startled a tiny mourning dove from the gravel path and into flight,
or nearly, since it plummeted again and again to the earth that draws all things towards its mercurial core, which is not a metaphor after all, the earth in its infant envy having swallowed a whole planet not exactly, but not entirely unlike Mercury, not as Kronos swallowed his progeny, but an alternate tale in which parent is devoured by child. Hestia, perhaps, for who knows better the hunger of the home than the mother of all domesticity. And now we are pinned in place not just by gravity, but by magnetism engineered by the Earth's noisy appetite. And how could I not think of this, staring into my daughter's enormous eyeballs, made bigger by her efforts to stretch them against sleep as she cries, and I lay her on the floor beside her crib, and I beside her, and as one moment swallows the next, I become aware that it is I who cries, having consumed her ire, while she reaches out and pets my stupid, wet face. For she, who began as nearly nothing at my core, is already as large as the earth. I'll do one more. I have to do this one. So in my bio, I indicated that I live in Zurich. That's actually not quite true. We were moving to Zurich the day after Christmas, after having moved to Philadelphia in the summer of 2020 from South Florida. So it's been a very tumultuous couple of years for many reasons. And after having moved to Philly, I was sitting at my desk as winter approached, feeling very, very sorry for myself. And so I wrote this poem. Far from Miami, I think of Miami. For a few moments I was from in the capacious sense of borrowed nostalgia. I was from a concrete condo whose windows on tiptoes just barely glimpsed the ocean. Some mornings, a quarter-mile offshore, a tanker spun, great mobile caught in a small wind. I congratulated myself on the color of the water. Afternoons, the sky boiled over, and I imagined the indigo and cobalt underbelly of the clouds had something, anything, to do with my regard for it. You can see where this is going. Once in a boat, I drifted through mangroves, their arms glowing white in the low light, and only just in that dusk happened upon a heron readying herself to plunge. Her wide eye stilled. I saw her see me. I see her now. Her body is ribbon, light, slight as a needle from native pine. She curves inward, it's always inward, bill resting on breast, as though she is speaking to her own bright heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Swim and to Betsy and to all of you for being here and all of you in the world of the interwebs. It's just a thrill to be here. It's my first time in Miami Beach. And I'm going to read a couple of poems that I think of as sort of parallel pieces, even though they're not kind of next to each other in the collection. So in my bio, I say that I'm a terrible birder, and I really, really am a terrible birder, but birds still sort of have managed to be part of this collection. And so I'm going to read the first poem called Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey, 1. My first bird was a dove, but I did not know it. In Abuela's bird cage, I held it, hatched new, of an eggshell the color of sand. She had many birds with feathers, light and thin like fingers, the partridges in their regal browns and grays, the songbirds, specks of voice and dads, bright reds, vivid yellows, oranges like the sun over the Pacific. Doves in pairs with wide eyes and wheat-colored
nested in the upper shelves of the cage. Her birds seemed infinite and wild. They lived in the walk-in cage, separated by wood and wires. They sang into dusk, a gaggle of voices waited for escape. 2. Some days I hid in the cage. The ground smelled of wet straw and bird shit. I sat next to the bird feed, cupped the body of my bird in my hands, a talisman of heat and eyes. It wrestled helplessly, head jerking in jagged circles, its beak a dark stone, an arrow moving to find flesh, a jab a wound into my 7-year-old hand. But I was firm. I wanted its secrets, its love. I was a patient warden. Somewhere in the bird's bones was magic, a spell at least, an incantation, a melody to break the general, his hard smile. The bird was my weapon, and Abuela's gentle fingers peeled away mine. My grasp was rough, her whispers soft. She said, "Déjalo ir, mijita." But I needed its fragile warmth, its breath inside my skin. I was young, knew little of the world and its poisons, but I sensed emptiness and fear, the soul missing from the soldiers' boots and guns, the green tanks on the streets, the silence and hunger of those who turned away from love, ignored the strangled, limp bodies, beaten blue, thrown into the river, stacked along walls inside the camps. The coup was 7 years that summer. Still, its ash rained through the city, a blanket of gray soot. It clung to the crevices of all hearts, latched itself to every muscle. Every day I cradled my bird, its hollow bones, pulled it close to my chest, inhaled its musk, and waited for song and spell to wake us into living. I waited for hours, crushing my bird with hope. 3. I sat in the birdcage every day the summer before we left Santiago, stared at all the birds, their delicate bodies and wings, knew nothing of my sadness. Abuela promised to keep my bird, to watch it while we flew to a flat land with snow in January. One morning, the light still low and slight along the horizon, I forgot to latch the door. The birds danced out into the sky. The cage suddenly emptied, its door a sad tongue hanging open. Abuela left fruit and seed, hoping to lure the birds back. Weeks passed. We often heard their singing near as the sun fell into the horizon. They never came back. We left in March. It has been decades. I never returned to the birdcage. Now I look for birds with claws, beaks that kill. So that's kind of heavy, I guess. So, welcome to December, right? I'm gonna compare this one with like birds from a different place. Someday I will visit Hawk Mountain, and Hawk Mountain is this place in Pennsylvania where if you go in October when it's migration season, you see many, many birds of prey. And I'm not a birder in the traditional sense. I like birds that kill things. So here is my homage to that. Someday I will visit Hawk Mountain. I will be a real birder and know raptors by the shape of their wings, the span of them against the wide skies, the browns and grays of their feathers, the reds and whites like specks of paint. I will look directly into the sun and point and say, those are black vultures. those are red-shouldered hawks. They fly with the thermals, updrafts, barely moving, glide their bodies along the currents, borrowing speed from the wind. I will know other raptors, sharp-shinned hawks, the Cooper's hawk, the ones that flap their wings and move their bodies during the day, the merlins or peregrine falcons, soaring like bullets through blue steel, cutting the winds looking for rabbits, groundhogs that will not live past talons and claws. I will know the size of their bones, the weight of their beaks. I will remember the curves, the color of their oval yellow eyes. I will have the measurements, the data that live inside their bodies like a secret taunting me to find its guts. Or this is what I tell myself, but I am a bad birder. I care little about the exact rate of a northern goshawk's flight of speed. I do not need to know how many pounds of food an American kestrel eats in winter. I have no interest in the feather types on a turkey vulture. I have looked up and forgotten these facts again and again and again. They float out of my mind immediately. What I remember, my breathless body as I look into the wildness above. Raptors flying, diving, stooping, bodies of light, talismans, incantations, dust of the gods. Creatures of myth, they hang in the sky like questions. They promise nothing, indifferent to everything but death. Still, I catch myself gasping, neck craned up, follow the circles they build out of sky, reach for their beautiful mystery, the alien spark of more. So Ellene talked about bell hooks, and it made me think a lot about the first time I encountered bell hooks, and I read her when I also read Audre Lorde. And Audre Lorde has a wonderful essay called Poetry is Not a Luxury. And I really feel that, especially with the work that Swim does, right? Lorde talks about the fact that poetry is the way we tell the truth. And that makes me think about the people in my life who have inspired my own work. And my mother would never call herself a poet. She had to do other work. But I think of her a lot because she read poetry to me when I was a kid and has always been the one to tell me, even as I was an academic, no, you're actually a poet. I mean, those things don't contradict each other. Well, maybe they do. I don't know at this point in my 20-year career. But this is for my mom. You have to leave me twice. She said it as if it were a casual thing. Split the ashes, one for the velatorio here, one for the family mausoleum. Be sure the bones are dust enough to fit in a tin can so they do not give you a hard time at security. This is the great divide, mitad y mitad, ¿entiendes? Me repartes. This is how you bury your dead. There will always be two places, siempre hay dos. The immigrant always carries twin shadows. Siempre está la sombra. You cannot choose north, south, English, Spanish. You can only split sorrow. No hay medio. ¿Entiendes? The body has life, but the dead, they have little weight but sadness. Así es, mijita, así es. You have to travel to live. You have to travel to die. Me tienes que dejar dos veces. You have to leave me twice. El alma dividida en dos. One soul, two eternities. Then she stops and asks about the dog. Yeah, so that's my mom, right? Right? She's like, anyway, about this. And then she's like, oh, how's the dog? Yep. And you know, in many ways, I have gifted her so many books and said, you know, just write stuff down, and I can help you. And she's always sort of said, no, you do it for me. So this book is sort of a retrospective on what it means to have emigrated from Santiago, from Chile in 1980 to Oklahoma. And then halfway through writing the book, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so that made the book extra urgent, although I don't think of cancer as the center of the book. So I wrote a lot about it, and this is one of the poems that I actually love because it's sort of what happens even in the midst of, well, really crappy things. Ode to my hair. It was dark, wild, coarse brown red curls. It hung, a long, thick rope behind me, a way to hide, a way to be seen. I pinned or braided it in summer. It was not a crown, but it sparkled, made my whole self feel whole. This rope, a talisman I clung to when I ached for signs of beauty in the mirror, though I never lived as in beautiful. No dark queen ever envied my face, eyes, lips, skin, voice. Still, she might have given a kingdom for my hair, raged through fire, ravaged old fields to have it, my one spark of Venus. Then, one day, months into chemo, it was gone. It fell out at night in clusters on the brush in sad globs and dead clumps, like bits of wood, burned, ashen, like abandoned gray ghouls left behind after battle. There was no stopping it. All locks vanished, no more waves of color and curl. Bare, empty, like a field without poppies. I had nothing left to cling to but a strange, bright scalp. A year later, new growth, new kinks and swirls like small sprites, new spirals hang, dangle like crystals below my shoulders glowing. Strangers on the street ask, is it real? No way to hide. Chemicals made me otherworldly. Coils of slate blue, gray, purple mixed with white. Alchemy of medicine and time. I just want to make sure I'm good on time. Okay, I'm going to read, I guess, two more. So I have been told that this is a depressing book. I don't know what that really means. I guess, you know, immigration, chemo, a coup, right? Oh, I guess that's where it's depressing. You know, I don't really know what to do with that information, so I just go with it. But so in 2016, many horrible things happened. We had a presidency that many of us would like to avoid, and that was the year I was going through chemo. So that was super extra fun. And so my dearest friend said, well, what are we gonna do in the meantime? And so that is where this poem comes from. In the time of the patriarch, for Amy. The boots march in step, armies of sadness each day, a day closer. All seems to stop but the time of the patriarch. Cancer cells grow like strange vines, bouquets in blood, swimming in black lanes like pinballs in a maze. Turkey vultures cut through bullet blue steel skies with finger wings, looking for possum carcasses and squirrel heads. Butterflies lost at sea, thrown off track by gusts, pulse their battered wings in aimless circles. In the meantime, we will cling to the world of light, look to the sun, talisman, sign of the ancestors. We will birth our bodies out of sky dust and heat, constellations bursting out through black holes. We will sprout song out of our mouths, crucibles of joy sounding out the blood waves of our stories. We will become myth, Medusa, Cleopatra, Guadalupe, inhabit mitochondrial time, live out of fire and breath. Madness and machines tell only the end of time. We will tell the time of mothers and daughters. We will keep the time of love. And so the last poem I read is for my goddaughter, mi ahijada Natalia. So I'm a 1.5, right? Came to the States at the age of 7, and she's our first from the States. So I think about that a lot, what it means to be grounded somewhere in relation to locality and memory. Rooted, for Natalia. When I held her a decade and some ago, she was a world of blood, a slight sack with wide eyes and a hungry mouth, small succubus, demanding, angry, yet beloved, so beloved. My mother, my father, my sister, we traveled 3 time zones to hold her, to see her, this new alien creature made of old world stories, plane rides, suffering, and luck. She was our first, the first girl, first to be grown from here, not a weed or a stolen vine, not planted elsewhere, but rooted here in this soil. She was not piecemealed or half-made. This land of misery and promises would claim her. She was of it. We held our wonder, imagined the land would hold us all to her now. No need for paper, documents of our naturalized tongues. No more aching for ground and memory. She would be the new world. We all saw our bright planet in her small blue eyes and curly hair. We did not want to see any accents or sadness. She would be the door, she would be the gate, she would be the hole to our brokenness. This is how the muting continues. We contort, we twist ourselves, we aspire to quiet spaces between cracks. Now she looks for her face in the black and white photos in my mother's shoeboxes. What am I? Who am I? She demands. She rages against the emptiness of bootstraps and hidden shames. Oh, we try to tell her something of our deep, deep past and sorrow, what the Pacific smells like, the way to hold her tongue to roll an R, how to eat cebolla y tomate, how to claim more than this dirt. But we are ghosts. We have given up the flesh. We are like wolves after the war, and she has no patience for quiet immigrants. Thank you very much.
Just wanted to read about Luke's quote. Oh, great. So I just wanted to read a quote from Bell Hooks because she really inspired me a lot. And oh, sorry, I'm Ellene. Hello, I'm one of the poetry readers at Smith, and I pretend to be an IT person also at RFA. I'm also Jen Kretnick's daughter, though we don't look that much alike, but I promise I am. So I just wanted to read one of Bell Hooks' quotes that really changed my life. So she said, "Queer not as being about who you're having sex with, that could be a dimension of it, but queer as being the self that is at odds with everything around it and has to invent, create, and find a place to live and to thrive." That was
I find a place to speak and to thrive and to live. And she will stay forever as one of the poets that shaped me and shaped my life. And we were honored to have her here in general and to have her words stay with us for the rest of our time. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Maylin. That was really beautiful. And thank you so much, Soledad, and thank you so much, Ellene. That was a beautiful, beautiful reading, and I loved how you all wove bell hooks through the night so you could feel her spirit. And the reminder she's been so influential for all of us during those very formative writer years, right? We're in our 20s and we're searching and we're looking for voices that resonate with us. I just posted a quote of hers, and it's about how love has a transformative power to change the world. It's more of a thought that you would expect to come from a spiritual seeker, but aren't poets all mystics, right? Aren't we all like the original theologians? So thank you all for joining us, whether you're here live at the Betsy, or whether you're watching us live from home, or whether you're watching us asynchronously. So thank you, we appreciate you, and we'll see you in 2022.